Hi, Dr. Wohler here for Integrative Medicine Academy. Title of this educational video is Does the Organic Acids Test Always Confirm Mold Toxin? Also, what's called mycotoxin exposure. So one of the things to get used to doing is the organic acids test in practice because there's so much information on it that's important to know. It's really a game changer in practice. But there are certain markers on that test that also can indicate mycotoxin exposure and might also indicate environmental chemical exposure, so the GPL tox. We're going to talk specifically here about the organic acid test and the mycotox profile. And some of the questions I get is, can you always rule out the need to do a mycotox profile if the organic acid test is normal for mold markers on page 1? So here we have an individual where we can see we've got a few fungal markers elevated. We have a very high level of arabinose, which is linked to invasive candida. Citramolic is often high with Saccharomyces cerevisiae exposure, yeast overgrowth, 3-oxyglutaric, same thing with just a general yeast overgrowth situation in the digestive tract. You'll notice markers 2, 4, 5, and 6 are normal. Now, if there was mold colonization in the digestive system, those markers oftentimes are elevated. So again, the most common one is arabinose, and that is linked to invasive candida. If we look at this organic acid test, we'll see that this individual has markers 2, 4, 5, and 6 elevated. So there is absolute Aspergillus overgrowth within the digestive tract. And we see a very high level of ochratoxin, which is actually linked to Aspergillus. So it's very much showing us that at least part of this ochratoxin is likely coming from gut colonization of mold. We know that Aspergillus is also a producer of oxalic acid. This individual also has an elevated level of invasive candida. Now, one of the things that happens in the presence of these mycotoxins is they inhibit immune function. So this particular toxin called mycophenolic actually suppresses B cells, which are needed for antibody production, including can be IgA and IgA, IgG, for example, with regards to secretory IgA, and it's suppressing T cell levels as well, which is important in adaptive immunity. And that often leaves people more susceptible to opportunistic bacteria, fungal overgrowth issues, which is exactly what's happening here with the presence of 3 Clostridia markers on the organic acid test. So one of the things that Great Plains has seen is when you have higher levels of mycotoxins, there's often higher levels or chance of having opportunistic candida overgrowth, or what's called chronic candidiasis, as well as Clostridia bacteria. Now, this individual also has a number of mitochondrial markers that are elevated too, and that can occur because of the presence of fungal overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, and even mycotoxins. This particular one, gliotoxin, actually will damage the mitochondria. And so it's not uncommon to see on the organic acid test problems with regards to glutathione production and detoxification, which is represented here by this pyroglutamic. Pyroglutamic is an indirect marker of glutathione status. We have elevated lactic, elevated succinic, and then we've got 2 markers here indicating Aspergillus overgrowth within the digestive system. Succinic is an interesting marker because it's actually linked to complex 2 of the electron transport chain, which is what makes the bulk of ATP. And this one is often elevated in the presence of chemical exposure. It can also be high in heavy metal exposure. I have seen cases where the succinic was elevated because of mold. So one of the things to consider when you do see high succinic is to run a GPL tox, which is also called a non-metal chemical profile, and also consider heavy metal testing as well. So here we have an individual that's got very high levels of ochratoxin, extremely high levels of gliotoxin, almost 140,000. That's extremely high. So we know that there is some mold exposure. Clearly there's mycotoxin exposure, which gets produced from the mold, and it is linked to Aspergillus. They also have very high mycophenolic coming from Penicillium. Aspergillus and Penicillium are often found together in moldy environments. None of the Stachybotrys, what are called the trichothecenes mycotoxins, are elevated, and the other two are normal as well. So we have very high gliotoxin and very high mycophenolic, as well as ochratoxin. But when we look at the organic acid test in this person, all of the fungal markers on page 1 are normal. So again, if you have gut colonization of Aspergillus, you will often see either 2, 4, 5, or 6. And that certainly would tell you that there is active mold exposure colonizing the gut. But some people can have mycotoxins in their body that they were exposed to from previous mold exposure, but they're not necessarily showing an active mold infection. So the point here is that you cannot solely rely on the organic acid test to rule out the existence of mycotoxins. Now, this person does have an elevated HPA linked to Clostridia, which we know clearly could occur because many of those mycotoxins are immune suppressive, and we've got a bacterial overgrowth in the digestive system as well. Now, this individual we see has very high levels of markers 2 and 4. We do have a high level of arabinose, and we even have a marker here called tricarboxylic, which is linked to Fusarium mold. So we have gut colonization of Fusarium as well as Aspergillus. But when we look at the mycotox profile, okay, the only thing elevated is ochratoxin, and any elevation is significant and potentially significant for the individual. But we notice that the Fusarium, which is actually can produce other mycotoxins, are all normal. So here we have an individual that's got active gut colonization, picked up on the organic acid test, but their overall mycotox profile is, it's not normal, but it's relatively normal, certainly compared to the last person I just showed you who had extremely high levels of mycotoxins. So the point of this is that the organic acid test in many ways points the way for additional testing, but you still have to use your clinical insight, your gut instinct, your clinical instinct, and always apply the information to the clinical presentation of your patient. It's important to treat the mycotox profile as a separate test. I always recommend to people that if you're just starting off testing and a person's never had an organic acid test, absolutely make sure you do an organic acid test. You could do other testing, but you absolutely need to get the organic acid test. But you also need to treat the mycotoxin test as a separate test. So they complement each other very well. But don't assume that the mycotoxins are going to be normal just because an organic acid test shows normal markers on page 1. Okay, so here are the Fusarium mycotoxins, aniatin B and zearalenone. Both are normal, although they had gut colonization of Fusarium on the oat. We get into this topic in great detail: mold, mycotoxin, chemical toxin, metal, toxicity testing, treatment protocols, detoxification interventions in our Toxicity Mastery course, which is offered through Integrative Medicine Academy. So for more information about the Toxicity Mastery course, you can go to toxicitymasterycourse.com, or you can email us at toxicitymasterycourse@gmail.com. If you are a healthcare practitioner, you can interact with myself, Dr. Wooler, as well as my partner, Dr. Trincatella, through a membership site called Functional Medicine Clinical Rounds. This site has the ability to schedule one-on-one lab consults with us, case review, clinical troubleshooting. There is some educational material on this site, various videos. There's also a member forum for healthcare practitioners as well. And you can actually schedule consults with us through the website. There are live clinical rounds, a series, a whole library of videos, as well as other downloadable documents, including these clinical data sheets, which are one-page PDF documents that you can download that provide snapshot images of various tests and specific markers, and then give information about the clinical relevance of those markers, things to consider clinically in your practice. All of that is accessible at functionalmedicineclinicalrounds.com. If you have any additional questions about some of our other mastery courses through Integrative Medicine Academy, please look at our main website at integrativemedicineacademy.com. You can also email us at integrativemedicineacademy@gmail.com. Again, this is Dr. Kurt Wooler for Integrative Medicine Academy. Thank you.